We have been saying on this channel that everything is linked. And if that is true, then this Fred Matiangi issue, where it seems that he's being harassed, must be linked to everything else. And more importantly, it must be linked to the most important critical factors unfolding behind the scenes in Kenyan politics. And therefore in this video, we will take a much closer look, and indeed a very revealing look, at this incident that unfolded yesterday, where the police broke, you heard me right, broke into the house of the former CS internal security. Now stay with me and you'll discover everything you've heard so far is not even a tip of the iceberg. Okay? We'll go step by step and you'll realize it is so revealing. And it tells us so much about what is unfolding behind the scenes. Now, point number one, which is very important that we realize, is that there's overwhelming evidence that in fact the police are not after Fred Matiangi. At this moment, no, they're not. They're after something that is in the possession, or they believe is in the possession, of Fred Matiangi. Now let's go through the details of the break-in so that I prove that. Multiple eyewitnesses say that the police used a Land Cruiser to break the front gate. Hey! Now from the photograph on your screen right now, you realize that this gate of Matiangi is very strong. So the Land Cruiser weight and force was used to force the gate through. And you can see evidence of that. You can clearly see the way the latch broke. What? Now they did this after the watchman or the guard on the premises refused to open the gate. Obviously was under very firm instructions not to open the gate for anybody who does not have a court order. And clearly the officers who went to Matiangi's house did not have a court order. Others would have produced it and the watchman would have opened the gate. And they would have gone in lawfully, legally, bila shida yoyote. Now once the officers had gained access, this watchman who was refusing to obey their orders had to be punished. So he was arrested, handcuffed, and thrown into a boot of one of their vehicles. Now the officers of course had already been told that there was nobody in the house. So they broke all the doors in the house. Now, even if somebody was in grade 1, or even in pre-unit, does that sound to you like people who are looking to arrest Fred Matiangi? Of course not. But what comes next is even more fascinating and instructive. Now amongst the things which are damaged because they ransacked the house looking for something and damaged the property of Fred Matiangi, amongst the items which were damaged was a washroom cistern. Now for those of us who watch movies, especially classic movies, you will remember that in the movie The Godfather, that classic, something was hidden in the cistern, in a washroom. That's the tank which holds the water so that you flush. Something was hidden behind it, actually a weapon. And we have seen in many movies that particular place is a favorite place to hide things which you don't want to be found, assuming that one day somebody will do a search of the house. Now of course this gives us a vital clue. It tells us that whatever they were searching for, or amongst the things they were searching for, the thing was small enough to be hidden, somewhere in a cistern, in a washroom, which in my opinion further confirms the contents of my weekly intelligence briefings, number 98. Now, of course, also the CCTV unit was tampered with. They took away the recordings from the system. And of course this was the cover story, that they're interested in the footage on that CCTV. And if we're to believe that story as being totally true, then how do you explain the other thorough search in every single room in the house of Fred Matiangi? How do you explain it? Now, the saying goes that for you to be a good liar, you need a very good memory. So that when you tell lie number 10, you remember what you said when you're telling lie number 1. Otherwise, it's very easy for lie number 10 to contradict lie number 1 and maybe lie number 5, etc., etc. And the reason why I'm saying this is, let us step back for a minute and look at the facts, as they're being presented to us by authorities. An actual raid was carried out, which happened yesterday, in order to prove that the first raid did not happen. Does that make sense to you? Does it? First of all, why would it be so important to prove that no raid took place? Why? Explain to me so that I understand. Granted, there are no photographs, there's no video footage of the first raid. But then anybody who has dealt with our local police and the authorities in Kenya, have you ever tried to take a photograph when a police operation is ongoing? Or even use your phone in any way when a simple police operation is going on? Have you? It's not possible. It is very difficult to get done. But in any case, we have multiple witnesses who say that it happened, including lawyers on the Matiangi team. Well, you could say the lawyers are biased, but that is an eyewitness in law. And if you really want to get to the bottom of something, you don't want propaganda or you don't want other things, political objectives. If you want to get down to the bottom of something, you interview all eyewitnesses. Those who may have some interest in not telling the truth, and also those who are unbiased. They'll tell you the truth. They don't belong to any side. They don't care either way. They just tell you what they saw. But the most eye-opening piece of evidence here, the most shocking, is the following. The police tried to get a court order to break into Fred Matiangi's house. And they didn't try it once, they tried it 3 times. And each time the court said, no, we don't see the grounds, we don't see the reason. It doesn't make sense to the court. And this was twice in courts within Nairobi and once in a Kiambu court. All the courts declined. But even after this, the police raid still took place. What does that tell us? It tells us that either this thing was time sensitive, they were fearing that whatever they want to get may be moved, or somebody was very desperate to get whatever it is that was supposed to be in Fred Matiangi's house. It has to be one of those two. Although, admittedly, those two are also connected. They're related. It is time sensitive, and it is also something somebody desperately needs to get their hands on. And I repeat, that thing is not Fred Matiangi in person, because I've heard other analysts say that the ground is being set for the arrest of Dr. Fred Matiangi. I don't agree Even if in the end they arrest him, that is not the issue here. That is not the objective here. The objective here is something totally different. It is getting hold of information. And of course the nagging question remains, what information? This information they want so badly is about what? That is the nagging question that remains. Now what I'm about to say is going to be breaking news to some of us here. But actually it should not be breaking news. And it is the following. The Kenya Kwanza government is in trouble. And whatever trouble they're in, it is serious. That should be rather obvious. And since we're talking about links, it would seem that whatever is in Fred Matiangi's house, or whatever was supposed to be in Fred Matiangi's house, would have assisted in easing this problem the Kenya Kwanza government has. Otherwise, why go into all this trouble? Running around for court orders, pretending you are not there when eyewitnesses say you are there, and then finally being there and admitting at the 11th hour that you are actually there. Something else also interesting. When the lawyers of Fred Matiangi arrived and found the policemen, the first thing they asked was, please give us the court order that has allowed you to do this. The police did not have it. And therefore what did they do? They stopped what they were doing. They stopped the search and left. What? I'm telling you, you can't make up this stuff. This is movie. Maybe even beyond movie. Ama ni video. What? So, let us now ask that big question. How is this Fred Matiangi issue linked to our politics? And what is sitting right at the top of our political discussion right now and our political issues in the country? Well, we know that the Matiangi story has remained right at the top for a number of days. There's always something happening. There are always things people are discussing. Now, what people normally do before they link something to something is they wait for a public meeting. Something like Matiangi shaking hands with Raila. You get my drift? So we have not seen Matiangi in meetings with Raila. So no link. Ama? Wrong. Fred Matiangi was the right-hand man of who? Former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila, what is the link? How are those two people linked? They are the famous handshake brothers. They are still working together. So do you now have your link? And so we can safely assume that whatever information it is that the Kenya Kwanza government so desperately wants from Matiangi is to the advantage of Azimio and to the disadvantage of Kenya Kwanza. That is a very safe assumption to make, isn't it? And the implications of this are massive. Wah, 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 wah. Don't forget that Fred Matiangi is a former CS in charge of internal security. Think for a minute. What kind of information does Bwana Matiangi have in his possession? What does he know about each and every corner of the country called Kenya? Is a wealth of information. Indeed, I would dare add that he has much more information, is much more informed than the current CS Interior, who is still settling down to the job and does not even have the experience that Bwana Fred Matiangi has. Now, with that kind of information, everything changes. And you quickly realize that this issue of Matiangi is a very weighty issue. Sio kidogo, for sure. Now, before I go, there's something else I want to point out. You think of a friend, somebody in the office, somebody in the village, who promises you A and does B, or promises you one thing and does the exact opposite. What is your opinion of that particular character? How do people take that particular person? Now, this is the huge political problem that the Ruto administration is now facing, because they promised us that the DCI would never again be used for political purposes. They promised us that state capture, and they were very emotional about this, would never happen. No institutions would be captured by the government to favor them. Now, of course, all those promises have been broken. And you see, even the latest incident at Fred Matiangi's home reminds us of other instances in the past which the Ruto administration during the campaigns were pointing to and telling Kenyans it would bring to an end. Yeah. And of course, there's a long list, very long, of broken promises. They promised they'll not borrow. They are now borrowing as if there's no tomorrow. They promised fuel prices would go down. They have not gone down. They promised the high cost of living within 100 days. That never happened. And so many other broken promises. The effect of all that is that even the people who are supporting the Hustler movement have now turned against that same movement that they used to support. Indeed, this government now finds itself all alone, very lonely, against virtually all Kenyans. How do you govern in such circumstances? How do you rule Kenya in such circumstances? It doesn't matter what state machinery you have. It doesn't matter what you have backing your leadership. But without the people, how do you manage? How are you going to be able to do it? Please explain to me so that I understand how they're really going to pull this off, because I don't see. Until next time, this is Chris. Kumekucha.